Welcome, everyone, to Unlocking Potential, Research Meets Practice in Sports Mentoring. Thank you for joining the Canadian Centre for Mentoring Research for what we believe will be an enriching hour on sports mentoring. We will be hearing from our panel of academics and practitioners committed to exploring the profound influence of mentoring in sports. I'm Christina Rinaldi. I'm a professor of school and clinical child psychology at the University of Alberta, and I just wanted to give a quick note about the Canadian Centre for Mentoring Research. We're delighted to be facilitating today's panel discussion, but you may not know who we are, and the Canadian Centre for Mentoring Research was founded by the Alberta Mentoring Partnership, Mentor Canada, and the Faculty of Education at the University of Alberta back in 2020, very famous year. Our mission is to advance knowledge about youth mentoring in Canada by bringing researchers together, but also raising the profile of Canadian research related to youth mentoring by connecting that research and practice, and ultimately by doing that, enhancing the quality and effectiveness of youth mentoring in Canada. So for all of you who might not know who we are, you can check us out on our website and look out for future panels and talks like this. Now, before I launch into the session that we're going to have today, I'd like to lead with a land acknowledgement. I'm at the University of Alberta, and as such would like to recognize that I am located on Treaty 6 territory. I respect the histories, languages, and cultures of First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and all First Peoples of Canada, whose presence continues to enrich our vibrant community. Through personal and professional reflection, I learn and continue to learn about the calls for action in response to the TRC. I teach and conduct research in complex, diverse, and changing contexts, and I'm committed to intentionally exploring and integrating different ways of knowing in my teaching, research on mentoring and other type of research and service, and through appreciation and respect of different worldviews and approaches to the work carried out. We appreciate that you are or may be joining us from different regions and territories, so feel free to note where you are joining from in the chat. But I know you're here to learn and engage with our brilliant panel, so it's my pleasure to introduce our guests today. Carolyn Hummel, PhD candidate from Applied Health Sciences at Brock University. We have Dr. Corliss Bean, Assistant Professor from Recreation and Leisure Studies at Brock University as well. Dana Bookman, Founder and CEO of Canadian Girls Baseball. And Kevin Wilson, Founder and CEO of the National Basketball Youth Mentorship Program. Thank you to our panelists. Welcome, and take it away.
All right. Hi, everyone. We're so excited to have you here. I'll just note that Kevin is actually not able to make it today. He had some work. He works for an MBA team out in Oklahoma City. So he sends his regrets, but I'm happy to take over and share a little bit about MBYMP on his behalf. But just to get started, we're going to set the foundation for today's webinar by providing a bit of context behind kind of state of mentoring within the sports sector specifically. And then we have some really great case examples that show us kind of the informal side of mentorship manifesting within sport and the more formalized side of mentorship. And that will be led through Canadian Girls Baseball, as well as the National Basketball Youth Mentorship Program. We'll end with a breakout room session where you'll have the opportunity to pick the room that you want to go into, and we'll have more details on that when we get to that point. And then, of course, we'll wrap up with some Q&A and discussion at the very end. You'll have your opportunity to ask us panelists any questions or comments that you may have. Next slide. But just to get started, we would love to hear everyone's experience or roles with mentorship. So feel free to share in the chat your experience with mentoring. So what does that look like? All right, we see we have a big sister, soccer coach, girl guide leader. And yeah, it doesn't have to be sports specific experience with mentoring. It could be mentoring across the board. I did see that we have quite a few folks from Big Brother, Big Sister agencies. We have some boys and girls clubs or BGC clubs here on the call. Mentorship coordinator, Indigenous Friends Association, Screen Mentors in Regina, director of Mentor Calgary, nice. Some coaches, love it. Volunteered at BGC, great. Seems like we have great representation across the board. So feel free to keep sharing in the chat. We would love to hear who we have with us, but just to keep us moving forward, first thing that we want to do is provide a definition of mentorship. So as I'm sure a lot of you already know already, there is not one universal definition of mentorship that exists. There's many different definitions and conceptualizations out there, but just to kind of keep us all on the same page, I really like this one from Weaver and colleagues that defines mentorship as a process in which an individual with knowledge and experience, so that's our mentor, serves as a supportive role model, provides guidance and support to another individual, our mentee, and assists in that person's development. And when we focus on youth specifically, we can see that prominent mentorship theories and models, such as Rhodes's model of youth mentoring, claim that close, enduring mentoring relationships are what can facilitate positive youth outcomes through social-emotional, cognitive, and identity development processes. So in other words, when we have quality mentoring relationships in the lives of youth, this facilitation of these positive outcomes is more likely to occur through these very important developmental processes that are happening in the lives of the youth. Next slide, please. And then when we look to the sport context, sport is often advocated as an avenue through which we can foster some positive developmental experiences for youth. And when sport is structured appropriately, this is where positive youth development, or what I'll refer to as PYD moving forward, is likely to occur. And when we talk about PYD, this is defined as a strength-based approach to child and adolescent development based on the assumption that all youth have the potential for positive developmental change. And PYD is becoming really popular because it rivals previous developmental models that often took this deficits approach to development, because it believes that every youth has this possibility, has that potential to develop optimally. We just have to make sure that youth are in these settings that will help them thrive and help them reach this positive development. And part of that is being in the presence of quality relationships. Next slide. Now, when we look at PYD in sport, PYD is most likely to occur when there's kind of three things happening simultaneously. First, youth have to be in a context appropriate for self-discovery. Youth need to be able to acquire skills important for dealing with life challenges. And then, as I just mentioned, they need to be surrounded by a community filled with supportive relationships. And in sport, PYD is comprised of kind of four main concepts or outcomes, which are known as the 4 C's. They're seen on the left-hand side of the screen there. We have competence, confidence, connection, and character. So when youth are surrounded by these quality relationships in sport, the facilitation of these 4 C's is presumed to occur. When looking at the connection between mentorship in PYD, mentorship can promote PYD. There's actually a lot of literature out there in the non-sport context that supports mentorship and the quality relationships as to being instrumental in fostering positive outcomes for youth. And this is because mentorship and mentoring specific programs provide opportunities where youth can engage in life skill building and active participation opportunities via the healthy mentor-mentee bonds that can be formed. And then connecting mentorship to sport now, sport is certainly an environment filled with multiple potential mentoring opportunities for youth. For instance, think of all the different figures that are present within the sport environment that could potentially be mentors. you have coaches, you have parents, you have referees. You could even potentially have older athletes within the same team or program serving as mentors to younger athletes. And there are a ton of mentorship programs that exist globally, and we're starting to actually see a lot spring up in the sport context, which is really reassuring and nice to see. However, all that being said, a lot of these programs are not empirically informed, which has been noted in the literature as one of the #1 reasons why sometimes these programs are not successful. So there has been a call put out to look for more evidence-based, research-informed programs and interventions to help kind of address this issue. And then also when we're looking within sports specifically, despite a lot of research that has been done around mentorship at the coaching level, we're still seeing that there's limited research that's been conducted at the athlete or even the youth athlete level, which, you know, to someone like myself who is currently in this space, I found very surprising because I feel like there's so much anecdotal evidence to support mentorship for these individuals, but we just we're not really seeing that manifest within the research just yet. So all in all, little is known kind of about mentorship in the sport context for youth athletes. And that's definitely an area that we can delve deeper into. Next slide. And before we kind of go deeper into the mentorship conversation, just want to take a pause here and provide a distinction between role models and mentors. Because as we saw in the original definition of mentorship at the beginning of these slides, role modeling is a part of mentorship, but mentorship is not necessarily a part of role modeling. And because these are two different roles, they can lead to potentially different outcomes for you. So just starting off with role models. Role models are oftentimes defined as aspirational individuals who set an example for others, and they can be someone that someone knows personally, or they could be a complete stranger. So for instance, I like to give the example of Serena Williams. Serena Williams is one of my role models. And as much as I love her, I have no relationship with her, and I don't know if I'll ever get an opportunity to meet her and build a relationship, but that doesn't affect the fact that I still view her as a role model in my life. Now, on the flip side, a mentor is an individual who you do have a close personal relationship with, who explicitly acts as that trusted advisor, and this typically happens over a sustained period of time. So for instance, one of my mentors growing up as an athlete was one of my coaches, and this is an individual that I still have a relationship with to this day, and I'm actually seeing them next weekend at one of my other teammates' weddings. So that's just showing you that this relationship has been maintained over many years, and there's still someone that I go to for guidance and support. So the way I like to remember it is just that mentors are always role models. Role models are not always mentors because you need that relationship to be in place in order for it to be considered mentorship. All right, we're now going to go through just some case examples of some organizations here in Canada that are doing some fantastic work. So we'll start off with Canadian Girls Baseball, where, you know, we'll talk a little bit about that role modeling piece, but then how that connects to informal mentorship that's happening within the organization. And then I'll take over and discuss a little bit about the National Basketball Youth Mentorship Program and more of the formalized mentorship that is happening within that organization. So I will pass it over to Corliss now, and Dana, who will go through Canadian Girls Baseball.
Great, thanks so much. Dan, I'll pass it over to you to start if you'd like.
Oh, I really want to start. I guess our Canadian Girls Baseball mentorship program is called our Junior Coach Program, and it started a little bit organically in our quest for new coaches. So the way that it works is we have players who come through our system, and when they turn 11, we offer them an opportunity to start working with our younger 4, 5, and 6-year-old players. And they have one of our, this is all female, so they have one of our female staff coaches who watches over them and helps them and mentors them through the process as they learn to coach and mentor the younger players. So in my view, it's creating not just future coaches and future leaders in our organization, but it's also creating a community around the sport where our players get to know each other, and they have somebody to look up to, and they have somebody to be friends with. And we have coaches who have gone through that program and now are leading some of our programs, and they can tell us the impact that that had on them. So I feel like it's successful, and Corliss can talk to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to share a little bit about our relationship and how we actually came to be on this webinar today is Dana and I have been working together for about 2.5, almost 3 years now. And we always talked about different things that we wanted to explore within the Canadian Girls Baseball organization, that there was so much great work ongoing, and what is it that we can explore. So for those academics out there, we applied for a SSHRC Partnership Engage grant, which is just a 1-year $25,000 grant that you partner a researcher with a community organization, and we co-develop some research aims and goals. And one of the things that was really on our mind was kind of exploring this process and exploring how such a unique environment, which Dana hasn't really got into, but the Canadian Girls Baseball environment is women-led, women-driven organization. So again, when we talk about role models, Dana herself is a role model for other individuals within the organization, just merely by being in a leadership position. Having all of the officials and the umpires in the association also being female also helps to kind of see that a girl can be any part of the game, whether that's a coach in a leadership position, an umpire, or a sport administrator. And we've seen that a lot. So that's kind of what led to our partnership and more the formal research. So what I can quickly jump into, just out of curiosity. So for people that we wanted to unpack and explore this in a way that was a little bit unique. So we did what's called a personal mini map, and a personal mini map is we talked to all the youth participants, or many youth participants, as well as our junior coaches, and we put at the center either what does a Canadian girls baseball athlete mean to me, or what does being part of Canadian girls baseball mean to me, depending on what position they were in. And from there, they could draw, they could write, they could do this on the computer, they could do it with pen and paper, they could add pictures, whatever it was that they wanted. They just wanted to share. So we saw so many different neat things here. So just one quick example coming up, this individual decided to write everything and talked about the importance of how being involved in Canadian girls baseball was empowering, because it showed that girls can be athletic and good at sports, but it also highlighted the importance of having women doing jobs that they usually see men doing. So again, that informal piece around just merely by having all of the staff and all of the administrators, all of the officials in those leadership positions was very, very helpful to kind of reinforce that see me, be me mentality. So if anybody's interested in the findings a little bit more, or even the use of this method as it relates to more mentorship stuff, we'd be happy to chat about that in the breakout room here. But what we did kind of want to highlight is some of those really neat findings that we saw either come out of what was presented in the personal meeting maps from our junior coaches as well as we did interviews and focus groups with this group. So as you can see here, a lot of really positive things about being a role model, being a leader, being part of that movement, feeling that sense of community because of kind of those intentional pathways that were put in place that Dana spoke to. The neat piece that really resonated with me was breaking that glass ceiling that too often we feel like is just not achievable for people, and kind of really making that difference. So all of these feedback coming from our junior coaches, which was really neat. So maybe I'll pass over to Dana if you want to highlight a little bit more about that process, and even just more anecdotal evidence, anything you want to share there.
Okay. I think that you talked about girls feeling like they can be any part of the game, and it is something our program for having all female coaches, all female staff, all female umpires, and then this junior coach program and a junior umpire program all evolved out of girls, out of feedback that we got from the girls themselves. We run an all girls baseball tournament in the summers, and I was there when one of our female umpires took off her mask, and one of the little girls looked at her and said, "I didn't know girls could be umpires." And at that point, I realized we obviously need more female umpires, and we need to make it a priority that girls are seeing others in these roles. Another good example is a player who went through our program. She still coaches with us. She's in university now, and she is looking to work in the front office at Major League Baseball because she has seen that, you know, you don't have to be a player to be part of the game. You can be on the other side, and you can be an administrator. You can run the league like I do. You can do anything. So it's interesting to see over the course of our program, which only started in 2016, not only that the girls are responding to it and that they're responding to the opportunity, but that there's a lack of opportunity for girls to see this and to be this and to take on these roles. And I think that one of the things that I've learned is that it really does start at a really young age. I mean, often we try to target girls when they're, you know, when they become young women and adults, and we expect that they're going to turn around and want to give back or want to take part. But by that point, so many of them have dropped out of sports. You're already dealing with a much smaller group. A good example of this is my daughter, who played baseball until a couple of years ago. She took up a different activity, but she actually still comes back and coaches. It gives her her high school volunteer hours. It gives her an opportunity to continue with the game she loves, but with less of a commitment to it in terms of timing. It gives her, it just gives her pieces that allows her to still have a foot in sport and to still be part of it because she started so young. So that's why we start our mentorship program really young, because they need a few years of learning and seeing and growing in these roles and having somebody to support them as mentors. And then they grow into these roles. And it's not a huge commitment, and we're not asking them to take piles of national coaching certification courses. You know, we do give them a training session. We do invite them to, you know, participate weekly and understand how we're doing things and have that mentorship piece. And it's a gradual integration into leadership.
Great, thanks so much, Dana. So if you want to find out more, or you have questions for Dana about the process or the pathways or any of those things, when we do our breakout sessions, feel free to join our group. But I'll pass it back to Caroline to go over the National Basketball Youth Mentorship Program.
Thank you. And thank you, Corliss and Dana, for providing that overview of the amazing work that Canadian Girls Baseball is doing. And I think it really just speaks to what we were talking about earlier of how there's so many different opportunities for mentorship within sport. It's not just the coaches. It can be like the umpires, like Dana said, or the junior coaches that are coming back and, you know, they were kind of in that mentee role and now they're transitioning into a mentor role. Maybe it doesn't seem like that explicitly on the outset, but like that's kind of what's happening. And it's really cool to see that transition from like role model to informal mentor to a more formalized mentor, and seeing how that can just happen in sport and the great benefits that come from doing that type of stuff and providing those opportunities. Now I'm going to be talking about a formalized mentorship program called the National Basketball Youth Mentorship Program. I'm going to be referring to it as NBYMP moving forward, just because it's quite the mouthful. And like I said, Kevin sends his regards, but he is the mastermind behind creating this phenomenal program back a few years ago. And I'm excited to kind of share some of the work that this program offers and work that's been done. And I got connected with this program because I serve as a mentor myself within it. So if we can go to the next slide. Just to give a brief overview of NBYMP, we're a nonprofit organization that provides youth with strong and valid mentorship from Canadian professional basketball athletes. university athletes and university and college coaches. So we kind of have like the athletes and coaches in those different leadership positions, and youth get access to these individuals that are in these kind of aspirational roles for them. So it's a basketball specific program, but it's open to boys and girls or any other gender identifying youth within Canada. In terms of the different services that we offer through MBYMP, mentorship is certainly at our core, and I'll delve a little bit deeper into what mentorship specifically looks like within MBYMP. But some of the things that the organization also offers are basketball workshops. So these workshops happen on weekends, and they're essentially weekend-long camps that run from 9 to 5 each day. But they're really cool because they involve on-court development, so like skills and drills pertaining to basketball. But then something that really sets these workshops apart from other basketball camps that at least I've been involved in or seen is the off-court development piece. So on these weekends and in between the sessions where youth are on the court, they also will engage in sessions around things related to like sports psychology, financial literacy, and nutrition. So the sports psychology sessions, we have a certified mental performance coach who comes in and talks to the athletes about important things like goal setting, positive self-talk, dealing with pressure, all of that. And she's actually a mentor within the organization as well. So the athletes are getting this exposure not only to this really great information, but it's coming from someone that was also a former high performance athlete who's serving as that mentor to them. And then the financial literacy, we talk to athletes about financial foundation so that they can start developing like financial competencies. So for instance, this is important for our athletes that want to potentially go to college and play basketball, but you know, if you don't get a full ride scholarship, like how do you manage still playing your sport and maybe working a job or like dealing with paying off student loans, things like that. So it's really a unique situation. I've never seen anything like this in terms of basketball camps offered before, and it's something that our youth really love. Now, in addition to that, MBYMP also has some other things, like we have spiritual development side of our organization, because we recognize that some of our athletes really value having those conversations. So we provide this as an optional tool or resource for youth and their families, kind of as like another off-court service. And this is known as our full court faith that Kevin developed. And then we also do some year-round events with different partners, and we have some collaborations that we've been able to establish. And I'll speak to one really exciting one at the end. But just in terms of our mentorship specifically, we kind of offer 2 different mentorship services. So our first one is email communication with a mentor. So our mentees will get paired up with, again, one of either university or professional athlete or a coach, and they'll be able to communicate with them via email on an as needs basis. And then the second option is a little bit more hands-on, and this is where our mentees will get bi-weekly phone calls or FaceTime calls with their mentor for the period of around 3 months. And both of these are free, which is, just want to highlight that we're able to provide this service to our youth completely for free so that they have access to these really incredible mentors. And although we don't really have that research that Corliss and Dana have around Canadian girls baseball, we're planning to do that. I'm hoping to work with Kevin on some of that research to get more of that empirical evidence. We have a lot of testimonials and 5-star reviews to, you know, assert that this program is really helping the youth in our community. It's helping them improve their confidence, academic scores, improve their sense of belonging. And some of our youth have even talked about how just having that mentor figure in their life has even helped them change their life perspective in a more positive way, which is always so nice to hear. Go to the next slide. Okay, and this was the partnership that I was saying that I just want to highlight, because I think that it's showing that this recognition of the importance of mentors in sport is becoming something that is a little bit more like people are starting to pay attention to it and wanting to get involved and partner for impact. So MBYMP recently partnered with Gillette, and Gillette is now supporting MBYMP because they even came forward saying like they recognize how valuable the presence of role models and mentors are in the lives of young boys. So one of the things that we did, this took place a couple weeks ago, was Gillette came in with a couple Raptors players. So you can see Gary Trent Jr. on the screen there. We also had Grady Dick. And they came in and did like a one-day camp with the boys from our organization. And it was just phenomenal. It was so great to see the boys getting that chance to interact with these individuals who they look up to. And it kind of aspired to be one day. And then also just hearing the comments from these professional athletes, also noting that how mentorship had impacted their sporting experiences, how it helped them get to the NBA level, and how they see the value of giving back to the community now that they're in that position too. So it's just nice to see that others are starting to recognize the importance of mentorship, and are starting to really invest in it now too. And this is something that we hope will continue on moving forward. But as Corliss mentioned, if you are interested in learning more about MBYMP, I'm happy to answer any questions, like whether it's about our services that we offer specifically, what the mentorship looks like, who some of our mentors are. I know Kevin is definitely the person that will have most of those answers, but I'll do my best to answer any questions you have, as well as any questions that you may have about the research side of mentorship. So we can have a conversation around that too. What I've been noticing, being someone that's immersed in this field and doing my PhD work around mentorship in sport. Happy to have those conversations as well. So maybe we can move to the next slide, and we'll have our CCMR team kind of go over what's going to happen next.
Okay, so we're gonna have breakout room sessions, but we need to do this the old-fashioned way, even with our advanced technology. We're gonna ask that people use the share or raise hand feature under reactions, I believe, and to indicate if they will be joining room 1, and then Veronique will place you in room 1 based on your raised hand. Those who do not raise their hands will be going to room 2.
Sorry to interrupt, Christina. I just realized that there was a new feature in Zoom since the last time I've done this that allows participants to choose the room they want to join. So if you want to go continue a discussion with Corliss and Dana, room 1, and Caroline will be in room 2. So this will open in a second and you can pick your room. If you have any issues, just message me. All right. Are you seeing options to join, just to confirm? Because I'm not seeing exactly the same thing you are. Yes.
Welcome back, everyone. You made it. I always find very surreal when we get it's not transported, but whatever it is, from one room to another. So we are going to open it up for questions, but today's event was an opportunity to have a panel discussion, to bring sports as a vehicle for development in place of mentorship, and to think about learnings that we can draw from the sports context that would be transferable maybe to even other areas of mentoring and or youth development. And so we highlighted research that is mentoring broadly defined or mentoring adjacent, but really and truly it is all mentoring, and to think of broadening those definitions. So I will open it up and facilitate any questions. And now that we have both groups back, did the panelists have anything they would like to say about their room experiences, or shall we launch into questions?
I can just highlight that we had some really enriching discussions about how we can move forward, and again, just kind of stronger together, and that there's lots of barriers to navigate, including funding and things like that. But I think if we are continuing to put in, fight the good fight and do it together, like having these conversations and making these connections, I think is amazing. Just having and hearing people's stories and lived experiences are so powerful and moving. And I think never forget the power of those stories, because those are what help change, and kind of move the needle, even if it's a tiny little bit. So keep sharing those stories, keep putting in the good work, which is amazing. I think we're preaching to the choir here in terms of who's in the room, but yeah, really powerful discussions.
Yeah, and I'll echo that. We also had some great conversation in our breakout room too. Some really good reminders around things like the importance of providing resources and training to mentors and mentees as we're going into development of these programs, or even, you know, questions around like, how do we actually measure success? Like, what does like a successful mentoring program or relationship look like? And being mindful of that and taking consideration what those measures of success look like, organization to organization. So some really thought-provoking conversation and some things that I'll certainly take back to my own work and keep in mind. So I thank you to the individuals in my room who shared.
Well, I want to thank the panelists for their time here. And I think we have a few minutes before we've been really on top of the timing here, but if participants have any questions they would like the whole group, for the panelists specifically, or for the whole group to consider.
Maybe while we're waiting I think we're a small enough group, so if people also feel comfortable just unmuting and raising their hand, we can definitely do that as well. But maybe as we wait for questions to come in, Caroline, I'll let you do your plug if you'd like.
Yeah, so my group, I kind of hinted to them about this, but just for some context and a little bit about me and my role with like research in this space. So my dissertation work is looking to explore mentorship for self-identifying girls and women in sport. So really getting an understanding of how girls and women perceive and receive mentorship. And the first part of that dissertation is kind of taking an organizational level approach to understanding mentorship. So I would love to chat with program staff who are from sport and physical activity-based mentorship programs here in Canada. And you don't necessarily have to be like a sport-specific program. Like if you offer your, a general youth mentorship program, but you have a sport-specific element to your program, like for instance, like a Go Girls with Big Brothers Big Sisters, please do reach out to me. I'd love to chat with you just about what you're observing within this space, outcomes that you're seeing as a result of kind of the sport-specific mentorship. And when I'm saying program staff, this is anyone from individuals that created the program or those who directly oversee it. So for instance, a program coordinator or facilitator. And you will be compensated for your time. You'll get an e-gift card of your choice as a thank you. So my email contact is there if you are interested, or if you know anybody that you think would be a good fit, please feel free to share my email with them, and we'll go from there.
Thanks, Caroline. Kate, I see your hand there. Feel free to unmute and ask away.
Yeah, so not so much a question, but just thank you to everyone who shared today, and just thank you for the work you're doing to support mentorship in sport. It's huge, it's really needed, and yeah, we just appreciate you. I mean, being on the other side with Big Brothers, Big Sisters, we see kids that don't always have someone like you or a sport like yours that is really encouraging them and giving them that network of support. So just know that, like, you're making my job easier, and we appreciate what you're doing.
Thanks a lot, Kate.
In regards to recruiting sport mentorship program staff, so I used to be a coach with Fort McMurray Youth Soccer Association. You'd want the person coordinating like the whole association, or like a coach of a girls team?
Like anyone that's directly involved in like a mentorship specific program. So like if that association has a mentorship program underneath it that someone's overseeing, like that's kind of who I'd be looking to chat with. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
Well, if there aren't any questions coming in, I might just quickly flip back. I know Caroline's contact information is actually on both slides, but please feel free to, I believe you'll have access to the slides after the webinar as well as the recording, but please feel free to take down any of our contact information and reach out to any of us. Always happy to chat. Again, Caroline's my PhD student, and we have regular conversations about kind of cold emailing people and being bold, and don't be afraid to make that one connection, because you never know where that one connection will take you, or that one conversation or virtual coffee chat. So please feel free to send a note and have those conversations. I know we were only able to share for a short time today, so happy to continue the conversation in other spots as well. And thank you to Canadian Centre for Mentoring Research too, to host us today.
Oh, thank you, Carolyn, Corliss, and Dana, because I could not have done justice to kind of really making the practice piece connect with research, because research sometimes is very isolating, and I think it's exciting, but sometimes that doesn't come across, and you kind of really made it come to life by having that roundedness with all the different pieces and work that you do. So thank you. And we are going to be ending on time unless there's any final comments, Veronique, that I've missed, but just have a great afternoon. And thanks everyone for joining, including the participants who took time to join us today.
Yeah. Thank you everyone for being here, and thanks for the great conversation.